Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another great spotlight session. Today, I have Luis Cando of Aerotek Environmental. It's a mold remediation company, and they do a ton of other things. I'll let Luis get into all that stuff. I won't, take away the shine from him today. So,
Thank,
Luis, thank you so much for coming on. The floor is yours.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? I'll take a good morning, everybody. I know everybody's
Good
mics are off,
morning.
but good morning. I just want to say first and foremost, thank you everybody for your time. It's Friday, so happy Friday. Uh, I also want to say thank you to Lawrence for reaching out. Thank you to Cornerstone Realty. So ultimately, at the end of this presentation, you'll have my number, my direct number, because I'm never really in the office. And the whole purpose of me spending some time with you today is explaining what do we do? What does Aerotek do? How can they help us, right, as realtors? What's a little quick 101 of mold that I can learn and apply when I go to my showings, right? So ultimately, I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Lewis, I think you're on mute.
Hey there. Can everybody hear me now?
I can hear you.
Can everybody, was that anyone
Yep,
able to hear me before?
you went muted for a quick hot second, but we're good to
No
go. You're good.
problem. So, first and foremost, I want to say thank you very much for the time. Thank you, Lawrence, for reaching out to Aerotech and saying, hey, can you come out and talk to our realtors a little bit about mold? For all the realtors, thank you. Happy Friday. All right. So, I appreciate your time to just be here and learn a little bit about mold and how it can help you at your job as well. Okay. So, let's just get right to it. Quick little slideshow that I made for everybody. Let's see. And again, if I'm going too fast or too slow, just let me know. Is everyone able to see the first slide there?
Yes.
All right, awesome, awesome. So essentially, Mold 101 for realtors, what every agent should know before, during, and after a listing. Okay, let's just get to the first one here. So within 30 minutes, okay, and I try to make it nice and short and fun, not to drag it out, but just to keep everyone engaged. So mold basic, what it is, why it grows, and why it matters for a sale. Some red flags, so signs to watch for during showings and walkthroughs. Impact on sales. So how does mold actually affect your offers, your appraisals, and closings? When to call a pro, knowing the line between a repair and an inspection, and then working together, right? Because teamwork makes the dream work. So let's go to the next one. What mold actually is, right? So let's keep it really simple. It's a naturally occurring fungus. It exists everywhere, right? So mold spores exist almost everywhere, indoors, outdoors. Problems start when spores land on a damp surface and begin to colonize and spread. Moisture is the trigger. So leaks, high humidity, poor ventilation, or past flooding can create conditions mold needs. No moisture problem, no mold problem, right? It moves fast. So visible mold growth can start truly within 48 hours. All right. So ultimately, we say it takes about 48 hours or so if something gets wet or microbial growth starts. Okay. This is ultimately the really big thing for realtors to know. There's a big difference between mold and a mold problem. Okay, ultimately, mold, you're allowed to have normal levels of mold. It's part of life. It's present in the air almost everywhere. So it's in my house, your house, Danielle's house, Lawrence's house, your best friend's house, but it's not enough to make a mold problem. Okay, a mold problem is always a moisture problem. So if you find one, you're really looking for the other. Fix the moisture and you fix the mold. A lot of this, obviously, oh, Luis, it's common sense, but it'll all math for you, okay? So this is my silly little analogy that I explain to people, okay? Before we go into that, I tell people all the time, hey, listen, you don't deal with mold every day, so I have a silly little analogy to kind of make everything math for you, okay? So this is my analogy. The four quarters of mold in America, to have a dollar, you need to have four quarters. That's just how it works. It's law, right? A mold problem works the same way. It takes four specific things coming together all at once in the same place. Miss any of them, and you may not have a mold problem. Okay. So let's talk about each one. In order to, let's have an example of, let's say, a basement. The first quarter you need mold spores, right? So they're always everywhere, right? They float in the air, my house, your house. The presence of them isn't doesn't mean that there's anything wrong, okay? But it's not enough to have a mold problem. It's only a quarter. The second quarter that you would need is you would need water intrusion, right? The trigger that starts it all: a leak, a flood, roof failure, plumbing failure, persistent condensation, introduces water mold, needs to activate. This is usually the quarter that actually starts a problem and the one most worth asking sellers about, right? So, like we said, it could be a sub pump, a little drip from a pipe, water from a basement, a flood, God forbid, right? Um, it's not a dollar, but you're at 50 cents. Everybody still with me?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. The third quarter, it's a really cool word for mold food: cellulose. The mold source a mold feeds on. So cellulose, again, is just a cool word for mold food. Any porous items. So anything that is made out of paper, like drywall, paper, wood framing, a teddy bear, a sock. All right. Those things are considered porous. Okay. So essentially, there's porous and non porous. When it comes to non porous things in the basement, like glass, steel, metal, plastic, with the right disinfectant, you can disinfect those things. But ultimately, anything that is porous, that has cellulose, if it gets wet, it would have mold food in it. This last quarter is the most important quarter. This one right here is the most underestimated one. Okay. It is the one that I say, hey, if this was found in the basement with the other three quarters, you may have an issue. Okay.
Mhm.
The condition that lets it linger: 60%. Humidity is where mold growth starts. Okay. So warm, humid, poor ventilated spaces. Think closed up basements, crawl spaces, bathrooms without a proper exhaust. It lets moisture linger long after the initial water event. So without that ventilation and dehumidification, things never dry out. So ultimately, in a basement, mold spores, right? Water intrusion, cellulose, it's only 75 cents. This last one is the most important. Me personally, a dehumidifier in every basement is a non negotiable. Okay. If you have
Mhm.
a dehumidifier in a basement, right, all she's doing is sucking up the moisture from the basement, right? And if you can keep the number on that little thing 59 or less, even if something were to get wet in a basement, you have a big guard dog saying, no, 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 don't get rambunctious, stay in order. You're negating the last quarter. So, this lack of
Mhm.
humidity, really what it means is having a dehumidifier 59 or less, because at 60, and this isn't the temperature, everyone, this is the percentage of humidity. Mold grows at 60. Okay. So
Mhm.
this is one thing that can be applied to a bathroom, right? If a bathroom doesn't have a window, or better yet, a fan, right? Then you're not negating the fourth quarter. So if something happens in a bathroom, right? Uh, and there is no ventilation, it's just starting to make an environment conducive to mold growth. All right. So those are the four quarters so far. Okay. When the humidity is at 60%, I told the client, you'll never hear it, but you have mold music playing. And when something gets wet, it has essentially a scholarship to be the biggest, baddest mold ever, or it could be your guard dog. So, one pro tip that I always tell people is if you're blessed enough to have a basement with a sub pump, most people don't realize, hey, the day that little dehumidifier is full, she clocks out, she goes home. You don't have protection. So if you forget to empty out that tank, right? The best pro tip we always say is get a little $8 hose from Home Depot. You put that on the back of the dehumidifier. You run it to the sump pump, and every time you go down there, just make sure it's always 59 or less. You'll never have to bend down and do that. So that's just a little pro tip that I always suggest. All
Mhm.
right. Let's go to the next one. And again, any questions that people may have, we can definitely go over them after. Just some red flags that a little quick list during a showing, things you can spot without any special equipment. So if you sense maybe like a musty or earthy odor, especially in basements, closets, and behind furniture, you can kind of start making things math. Discolored ceilings or walls, yellow, brown, or black staining, even if painted over. If you see like peeling paint or bubbling drywall, it's a sign of moisture that's been trapped. Warped floors, right? Seeing floors that look warped, right? It's essentially explaining that there's been water absorbed over time. If you see like recent fresh paint to a certain degree in one area, sometimes it's used to mask a stain, not always times. History of leaks or flooding. So asking sellers directly and check disclosure forms, right? So these are just like little red flags that you can see
Mm.
what it looks like in the field. So these are real photos that we're taking. You can see that this person had an issue in their attic. Their attic had no fan, never had a fan, right? Essentially, that never negated the four quarters. So we know there's mold spores in the attic, right? We knew there was like insulation in there, right? And I believe that this particular one had a roof leak. So those three, plus without having a fan that is designated to kick in at a certain time, made that, and you can see it on the side of the bedroom. So the right one is our team removing. You can see here that room is contained, negative air through a window. You can see stocky botrytis. It's one of the four toxic molds. There's two types of mold. There's four that you should never ever have in a house. And we're not alarmists or anything. This is just fact finding. Those are toxic molds. You can't even have one in there, as opposed to traditional allergenic mold levels. Okay. Let's
Mm.
just continue to move on. Where mold likes to hide. It's not always in plain sight, which is exactly the problem. Some places that you can find them behind refrigerators, washing machines, right? Under sinks, around plumbing fixtures, inside HVAC ducts, and around vents. We know, in the hot summer days, sometimes when cranking it to make sure it's nice and cold inside, that machine, she starts sweating. So she starts condensating, right? God forbid it's heavy, heavy, and it hits like a drywall or anything like that, right? Crawl spaces in attics. If you ever go on a crawl space, right, and they have a dirt floor, right, Mother Earth, she sweats, right? Every day she's sweating. So you don't want that moisture to come into your crawl space. You want it to go on the outside of the property, right, on the grass outside. So you have to matumbo that and say, no, 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 don't be sweating into my crawl space. So the way that what we recommend is to get a 6 mil vapor barrier. It's literally the
Mhm.
thickness of a plastic, right? So whenever you see a crawl space with a dirt floor, you should always really have like a vapor barrier to negate that, if that makes sense, right? Uh, let's see, behind drywall shared with a garage or laundry room, right? Basements around window frames and sliding doors, right? If they're not fully sealed. Basement corners, sub pump areas. Just in case anyone doesn't really know what a sump pump does, essentially a sump pump is like a Home Depot bucket that has holes in it, and you put it in the ground of a basement or crawl space. And what it does is it's sucking and collecting all the moisture from underneath your property and on the sides, and then it's sending it out somewhere else. So a sub pump is very, very good to have. They should always be covered. Believe it or not, sub pumps sometimes I've seen they have no lid on them, right? Believe it or not, like there's moisture, there's water vapor that's coming up from there, right? So you're basically just telling your dehumidifier, here's a little more weight to bench press.
I never thought of it that way, thinking of uncovered sump pumps. Because I see a lot of them in different homes, but the way you just put it makes a lot of sense to put a cover on it. Yes,
For
actually.
sure, for
Hmm.
sure, because you got a lot of moisture there, and essentially you're just giving that girl who's bench pressing just more weight to just keep pushing. You know what I mean? So it adds
Hmm.
up.
Question about sub pumps. I know a lot of people have sub pump closets.
Yeah,
Now I have a huge dehumidifier in my basement and I wanted to do a closet. Would I need another dehumidifier in the closet itself? My sub pump is a triple and it is enclosed.
great. And what I would say is more than not, you don't. Okay, just depending, of
Okay.
course, the square footage of property. Essentially, most properties I always recommend about a 70 pint dehumidifier. Okay.
Okay.
If you have your sub pump in an enclosed closet, that dehumidifier that's in your basement main area will go through that. Okay. I
Okay.
always tell people it's kind of like, when your mom was cooking, you don't have to be in the same room with her to smell the food, right?
Yeah.
The house breathes. And so ultimately, that would be my answer,
Okay. Thank you.
of course. And one thing for this is a tough little thing sometimes when we tell people, hey, you should get a 70 pint dehumidifier, right? I just want to explain this really quickly. Up until like 5 years ago, you can go to Home Depot, you can get a 50 pint, 60 pint, 70 pint, or 80 pint. Okay. They're so advanced now how fast technology is going. You could go to Home Depot and get yourself like a 50 pint. On the top of the box, it says it's the equivalent to a 70 pint. So a lot of people have a little tough time finding that 70 pint DQ, but at the top of the box it says, oh, our 50s now are the equivalent to 70s, just in case you can't find one. Okay.
Hmm.
If there's no other questions, we'll just go on to the next one. Why this matters for health, right? You can't really talk ultimately about medical advice, not medical advice. Any medical advice, please consult your health provider. But just some facts, right? So, 2 to 5 times higher indoor pollutant levels. The EPA has found indoor air pollutant levels that can run at times 2 to 5 times higher than outdoor levels. Okay. 90% of the time is spent indoors on average. This is why indoor air quality carries real health weight. You can see to the right what some people may experience. Everyone's different, right? Everybody's body is different, right? Everybody's body is a temple, so everyone's different. What may bother me may not bother you, but ultimately, some of the things that the mold spores carry, their mycotoxins, the things that they leave behind, have been studied and seen that there are some effects from that. So just a quick little bullet list. I'm sure everybody's having their coffee, probably reading right through this.
Mhm.
We'll go right to the next one. How mold can affect the sale. Time and time again, buyer notices or asks, hey, a visible sign, an odor, a question during the walkthrough starts the conversation. Number two, inspection gets requested. The buyer's agent or the buyer requests a mold inspection, often alongside general home inspection. Number three, findings shape the negotiation. So results can lead to a price adjustment, as you know, a repair credit, or a request for remediation before closing. The most important, closing timeline shifts. So remediation typically takes days to a couple of weeks to complete, depending on the scope. So the earlier a moisture issue is addressed, the less it tends to affect price and timeline. Getting ahead of it protects your deal. Okay. Um,
Hmm.
let's take a look. That's pretty self-explanatory. Disclosure considerations. New Jersey requires sellers to disclose known mold water intrusions. I know there's a couple lines in there. For sellers, some things to just consider. New Jersey law requires disclosing known water intrusion mold problems to buyers. Fixing it and moving on without proper documentation can raise questions later. Right? A clean inspection report can actually be utilized as a selling point and not just a hurdle. Hey, it's something to be really, really proud of to have a nice, clean inspection report, right?
Hmm.
It's something that can really open up a pathway to just make things efficient for you as far as your real estate transactions. When dealing with buyers, a mold inspection, it's a reasonable ask, especially with any visible red flags. Report findings can inform a repair request, a credit, a renegotiation, and a documented remediation report protects the buyer at bluefin. So pretty simple here. Okay.
Hmm.
When to recommend an inspection. You don't need to diagnose mold. You just need to know when to call someone who can. When to recommend an inspection. Visible staining, like we said, odor, past water damage, right? Seller may mention a prior leak, flood, or repair. The buyer specifically requests it, right? Maybe they're hypersensitive or something. Who knows? Home has been vacant or unheated for a long stretch. Crawl spaces, basements, attics show moisture signs, right? You can kind of start putting the four quarters together to a certain degree yourself. Probably fine with that one when minor cosmetic issue, right? Clear, unrelated cause, routine bathroom condensation, there's no staining still. Recently remediated with certification documentation on file, no visible signs and no history reported, right? When in doubt, a quick inspection is far cheaper than a deal falling through at closing.
Hmm.
I've seen it happen time and time again. So let's see what our Aerotek indoor air quality test includes. Okay. Our indoor air quality testing has three components. So before I even go in there, there's a lot of mold companies out there. There's a difference between a mold company and a mold certified company. A mold company could just be, someone with a pickup truck and a generator, right? We, Aerotek, we have liability. So we have to write recommendations in accordance with something called the IICRC, which is the Institute for Indoor Cleaning Restoration Certification. Ultimately, what I'm saying is that what we do is we don't just do a physical inspection. We don't go and just go right off by the lab reports. We put it all together. So we put these three together: a physical inspection, the diagnostic of the area, right? Let's say the basement, including moisture meter readings to catch hidden issues. What is that? It looks like a remote control, okay? It's called the moisture meter. You put it on certain materials, and even if it looks dry and it might feel dry to the touch, it'll let me know if it's secretly high moisture content, right? Um,
Mm,
the other thing that we put together with this is doing those third-party lab results. So air samples analyzed by a lab. Microbial haze is the lab that we use in Virginia. Okay. The property history, understanding past leaks, ascertaining that information, the repairs, the moisture events, right? To kind of get the whole picture. Okay. Um, that means air sampling of the concern. We before I even go into those little bullets there, essentially just Luis, what do you actually how do you actually test this? So we go into the basement. I pull out a little kit. It has a little machine with an air cassette. We take an air sample, right? If I see anything that's visually concerning, right? We take this thing that looks like a bookmark. It's called a surface sample, and it has an adhesive. We swab and lift whatever that suspicious blemish is, right? And then we take an air sample outside the property. We put these in a Ziploc bag. They go out to the lab, and they're going to say, okay, based on the outside of this Cherry Hill property, right? We want the levels inside to be at this level or below. If it is higher, it'll tell us what kind of mold and how much of that mold. So
mm,
that is the lab part, right? Essentially, that means air sampling of area of concern, a detailed lab report. So it's the lab report themselves. We do the physical inspection, like I mentioned. They would get a digital book, which is basically a digital photo book, right? Shows
mm,
everything that we took pictures of and documented that day. And most importantly, a written report. What does it actually mean? With certified mold remediation recommendations if warranted. So inspections normally take maybe about 45 minutes, like an hour, just depending on how many questions you might have or the client may have. Test results take 2 to 3 days. We can always do like a 1 day turnaround. Sometimes things pop up at the last minute. So for those, we can address that. Um, Going on to the next one, unless anyone has any questions.
Hey, Louis, how much does this cost for you to come out and do the
Ultimately, it starts at about 450. It can go up to like 699. Ultimately, what we find out is like if you call me right now, you're like, Luis, I have a mold problem. First thing I say, hey, is it a whole property or is it an isolated issue? If it's just one area, right, you're essentially just paying for lab fees. But if someone says, Luis, I want you to check every closet, every room, the attic, everywhere, it's going to be a little more expensive. It can be about 599, six. It depends on what you're looking to get tested, but you're just paying for lab fees.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Working together, how I support you and your clients through the process. Okay, fast turnaround, scheduling that works around your listing and closing deadlines. What does that mean? I can personally be in any part of Jersey within 3 hours or so. We also do Pennsylvania and Delaware. Just putting that out there. Clear, honest reports, straightforward findings your clients can actually understand. So no jargon. We're not here to like sugarcoat anything. We're not here to be fear monger. Hey, fact finding, seeing if you even have an issue, right? Realtor friendly communication. I'll walk you through the findings directly so you can guide them, just like I'm doing right now. Sometimes I've been on the phone with realtors before we talk to the client. We go over the lab itself to learn how to read it to a certain degree. Objective third party, independent inspections, both a buyer and a seller can trust. Um, I do also want to explain in a perfect world, let's say we're not sure, there's something in this bathroom. We go and we do an air test. If everything is fine, we write out a certification for the bathroom. That is the best ultimate, best case scenario. But the reality is there is mold in certain areas. So that's why we do the air test. We find out is it okay where we can certify and everything goes nice and smooth, or do they need a little work so we can help give them, hey, the 5-year transferable warranty, the certificate of completion, and make that real estate transaction go through. Um, we also, and ultimately, when people have an issue in a property, that's why I made this specifically on mold. We do like testing for like asbestos and if you needed radon, but ultimately, this is our sport, right? You can see here we already work with other brokerages, right? Keller Williams right there, Coldwell Banker. So these are other companies that we're already working with. This is a quick picture of me. This is actually who would be there. So I personally would be there myself. If you can't tell, I love my job. I try to treat every house like it's my mom's house. I speak
Mhm.
Spanish too. So ultimately, let's go on to the next one. Any questions? I'm happy to be a resource. If there is anything to take a picture of, I will probably do this just because my number's on there. You can reach me directly. That's our website where you can get everything I just talked about, but even more information on there. And of course, like I said, we speak Spanish too. So
That was awesome. Did you time that? Because that was like perfectly 30 minutes.
I did not.
That was perfect. Like you said, oh, I
um,
got 30 minutes. We do have a question in the chat. Do you
yeah.
also do remediations?
We do remediation if it's needed. Ultimately, we don't leave people hanging, right? So if someone needs a testing done and they need an issue, we'll write them out a scope of work or an estimate. If they need it, they can take this and they can go and find any mold certified company because, like I said, there's a difference between two. So ultimately, we can do the work. If we do the work, like I said, we have to follow these minimums. And if we can establish, like for example, if you had to know what does mold even entail of, right? In this room, if we can do these minimums, seal this room off, right? Close all the vents, right? Open this window, establish negative air, which means it's just a big plastic tube that's clear to a big HEPA air scrubber, right? It's medical grade. Once that's contained, the moment we turn this on, that plastic doorway looks like it's getting sucked into, right? That's negative air. And that means that once that's done, if there is, God forbid, mold on this, the moment that I take this off and anything goes air, out the window,
Mm,
right? So the IICRC says, Aerotek, if you see mold here, you have to go 1 to 2 feet past any visible contamination or water damage. So in this situation, if it was here and let's just say it was this block, we would remove about a foot and a half around it, right? Any insulation that's in there gets removed too. Take a wire brush, right? We wire brush all the wood framing to make all the mold spores go, right? We put on these HEPA book bags, right? They pick up settled spores, which are essentially things you can't even see. Then
mm,
we put on an antimicrobial on everything that's wood framing, right? Last thing we do, it's called an antifungal sealant. So it encapsulates that wood framing. It can be a clear coat or a white coat, but essentially that prevents mold from coming back. Once
mm,
that's all dry and that's all good, go back to the office. And if we can do every one of those steps, the client would get two things. They get a certificate of completion. Hey, keep the real estate moving forward, right? The transaction, right? And you get a
mhm.
5-year limited transferable warranty. So hopefully that kind of gave you a little picture of what it entails there. So yeah,
Hmm.
we do the remediation if needed.
Cool. Do you guys have any other questions? Here's another question. Do you also, she says she loves your analogies. I do too.
Oh,
They were
thanks.
they were
Thanks.
good.
I appreciate it.
Um, she says, do you also close the treated area? I've had remediations done, but they didn't close.
That's a great question. So ultimately, there's a lot of companies out there, right? They say, hey, I could paint your house, I could build your house, I could be a plumber, and I could do an eight. We do one thing. We do mold remediation, right? And we do mold inspections. There are companies out there, they can say, we will take this out for you and we'll do the reconstruct. We don't. And the reason why, and we'll be completely honest with you, for us to do the reconstruction, we're about like 17% more expensive, right? Because it's not our sport, right? And
Mm,
so what I tell people is, listen, you don't need to pay a doctor to deliver a pizza, right? Right.
mhm.
Invest your funds into the people that need to do that work, And if it's just a matter of putting drywall, you can get someone for a couple $100, like a general contractor can do that. A general contractor should not be doing certified mold remediations if they're not certified, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, it's very common. It's almost like an industry standard that normally when people do certified mold remediation, they don't do the putback because you ultimately need to make sure that it's all dry before you put anything back. So in situations like that, if it was all wet, we would leave a commercial dehumidifier or a HEPA air scrubber to keep scrubbing it for a couple of hours, right? And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, when we come back, we check everything to make sure that everything is nice and dry and remove the equipment. So uh, there's a couple of ways. There's nothing wrong with putting it back. If there's a company that does it or don't, that's cool.
Sounds good.
Louis, anything of your service that it is subcontracted?
No, no. All the only thing that we would at points is if someone who does have maybe like a physical reasons that they can't go down there, right? Like, so for example, if someone's like, hey, I can't go in my basement and do my drywall, and someone's like, hey, while you guys are down there, I want you guys to do it. If it's something that's like a simple drywall, we could put it back. If it's something where it's like, we want to redo the whole basement and I can't go down there, Louis, so I want you while you're down there to get a contractor. We have a subcontract that's called CDM Construction that would give them an estimate, right? And see if that's something they want to do. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's the only other part that we would, I guess, subcontract them, give them a business card and tell them, hey, Carlos from CDM Construction, we've referred him to some of our clients and they've had great experiences. So
Cool. This was awesome. I definitely learned a lot today. Luis, I do definitely thank you for coming on
for
and
sure.
giving us a great rundown of everything that we didn't know about mold
Thanks.
and your processes in your services. So I think in the near future, we'll definitely be using you. Someone says, can you share your info again? If you can put your,
For
you want to put your
sure.
screen back up with your contact
For
info.
sure.
Yeah, get me out of the way.
And you can always send me an email, anyone and everyone. You can always shoot me a text, send me pictures, send me reports, whatever you need. I'm always available for you.
Awesome. 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 Anyone else? Any questions, comments, concerns? Think everyone's ready to start enjoying the weekend. It is
Yeah.
hot outside. I will say that. I've been sitting on my balcony for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, I try to walk my dogs today. I feel bad, but thank you everyone for your time. If anyone has any other questions, you have my direct number there. Lawrence, once again, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you so much. You all have a great weekend. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Of course. Appreciate you. Bye.
Thank you.